I've started the recording. It's 5 o'clock. Please say hi in the chat. Let me know where you're joining from. I see lots of people, but I don't see a lot of people with their cameras on, but that's fine. But okay, so I see people are joining from Samoa. Fantastic. I love to see that our Pacific contingent is here because I know the times that the other meetings are not always that convenient. So that's great. People are joining from Trinidad. People are joining from Hawaii. Let me see if I can keep up with everyone. Trinidad and Tobago, the Bahamas. We have a strong Trinidad contingent as usual. So I don't have to repeat those. I see Guyana, great. Corwin is joining from Guyana, that's fantastic. All right, and okay, we're gonna start very shortly. So welcome all of you. I see someone is mentioning that they cannot join the link. So let me see. Can anyone who is in the meeting right now, please feel free to post the link again in the chat because I have posted it already and most of you have joined, right? Using the link I posted in the WhatsApp chat. So that should be okay. Everybody should be able to join. Okay, great. Someone's joining from Jamaica. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Thank you. I see it's in the chat, my tech support. What we need is this. I'm going to copy this. Let's see if I can copy this. Okay, I'm just going to take a second and put this in the WhatsApp chat. Someone is saying that this link is for main night. It's actually not. That's interesting. Let me put it here. Okay. All right, so I've put another link in the WhatsApp chat, so hopefully everybody will be able to join. Okay, great. Hopefully everyone can join. Okay, I'm going to make a start because it's already 2 minutes past. Okay, great. Someone's joining from San Francisco. Hi, Paolo. Good to see you from San Francisco. So first of all, welcome to all of you who are here. I know that not everyone can make the meetings that I have that are earlier, so it's great to see everyone here. We all know I am Stacy. I'm the Ambassador Coordinator, and I'm going to start sharing my screen shortly so that we can make a start with this session today, which is going to be all about climate justice. Yeah, let me just let some more people in. As people are filtering in, I'll have to just stop. There we go. Okay, so hopefully everyone can join now that the correct link is in for WhatsApp group. Okay, so I'm going to queue up our presentation here right now. It's the beginning of it. And as you know, I really encourage everybody to join in real time. Yes, you can do the recording, but it's always to me a lot better for you to actually be here live so that we can interact with each other and we can really, you know, as thoughts are going and as we're networking and responding, I really do prefer that we can kind of all be here together. Okay, I see someone, Jonathan from Papua New Guinea. Hello there. I'm trying to shout out as many people as I see. Okay, so I'm assuming my audio and video is fine. So you can put a thumbs up if you can hear and see me well. I'm going to share my screen and then hopefully everyone will be able to see my session. Okay, let me present and I'm going to put this into full screen right now and we can make a start very shortly. My computer's a bit slow. Okay. Okay. Waiting for the presentation mode to go on. Here we go. Awesome. Okay, so can you see my screen and everything?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we see it fine.
Yeah, awesome. Great, super, fantastic. Okay, so welcome to this session about climate justice. It's great to see everybody here. You know, we're gonna just have a welcome and some opening remarks. I'll be talking to you about your local events. I really, really want everybody, as far as possible, to please think about having a local event that they can have in conjunction with the Virtual Island Summit, okay? I think that's why I want to go through guidelines for local events, okay? I'll be talking about climate justice and then I'll just say the dates of our next training session. So as I mentioned, it's fantastic to see everybody here. I really do enjoy having you all here. Some of you I talk to more often than others. Some of you come to office hours, but not everybody can. So here's another exciting training session. I hope that you're enjoying the program. I hope you're benefiting as much as possible. You know, please give me any feedback that you want to about anything you'd like to see. this particular year, the program was structured around a lot of your feedback from last year. So a session like this, for example, on climate justice, we've not had before, but I know that you were interested in getting a session about that and learning about it, so I included it. It's also part of my training. When I did my law degree, one of my specialties was climate justice and environmental law. Okay, so I want to give you a reminder. We have an in-person event. Island Innovation's first in-person event is the Madeira Forum on Sustainability and the Blue Economy. We have a giveaway for students and young activists. You have a chance to win a complimentary ticket to the days of the forum. It's happening the 22nd and the 23rd of June. This ticket does not include travel to and from Portugal, I'll just say that, but it does include an entry ticket. And then innovative startups, you have a chance to win speaking spots and free booths at this same forum, okay? So please feel free to check your ambassador update that I would have sent out yesterday. The links for the giveaway are there. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stop sharing just for a second. And then I'm gonna put the link chat right now so that you guys can see the application forms that you need to fill out, okay? Because as I said, oh, hi Addie from Indonesia. Yeah, it's 4 a.m. I really appreciate that you can join. Okay, let me just put the links for everything in the chat right now so you can see them. So for the students and young activists giveaway, the application for that, let me just put that link in there. So this will take you, this link will take you to a Google form that you can fill out. And as I said, the deadline is tomorrow, so please apply as soon as you can. Yeah, I'm just copying that link. Okay, so putting this in the chat right now. This is the student giveaway. Okay, this is the link to the form that you're gonna fill out. Okay, so that's there in the chat. Just paste that. Okay, there you go. So that is for the student giveaway. Okay, for the Madeira event, complimentary tickets. And then for the startup, the innovative startup, you have a chance to win tickets as well as booth space. Startup form. Okay, let me just get the link for that, and then the link for the startup, put right here in the chat right now. So please consider, if you can at all, get to Madeira. It would be great to have you at one of our in-person events, and please take chance, fill out the form and see if you can win tickets to the actual event. Here you go. Okay, great. So that's the startup form, and it's great to see people from Curacao, people from New Zealand. It's good to see you all. It's morning with you. And it is afternoon where I am. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen so that we can get back to the presentation. There we go. That's the actual, right? Okay, let me just my presentation. Okay. It's good to see a lot more people are arriving, as it were, for the session. All right, so now I am ready to share my screen. My computer is always slightly stubborn and can take a little while to respond. Here we go. Share the screen. There we are. Right. Okay, so as I said, the Madeira, the deadline is tomorrow. So it would be absolutely fantastic for you to look at the forms, fill out the forms there, and take a look. It would be fantastic to have everyone's support. So the deadline is tomorrow, as I've said. So if we're now moving on, the dates of our upcoming sessions. So we have actually another session coming up in weeks about the blue economy and the orange economy. And again, planning your local hubs. I really want to hear as much as possible from you all how that is going with your local events that you can hold in conjunction with the Virtual Island Summit. And the dates for the Virtual Island Summit are September 25th to October 1st this year. So that's June 14th. And then at the end of June, we have just a session to do with networking and community building, which is what I'll do during that session is, for a change, we'll have some breakout rooms. I haven't had that in a while. We're usually all together, and I know that you all use the WhatsApp groups very well in order to network. I thought it would be nice for us to actually do some networking during a session. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing on June 30th. Okay. And then after June 30th, the next session is going to be in July. We have a really interesting session, which is linked in its own way to climate justice, equity, inclusivity, and marginalized communities. That's something we have to bear in mind. And then we're also going to talk in August about this. We'll have a session completely focused on the virtual island and on organizing local events as ambassadors. Now you're all automatically registered for the Virtual Island Summit, so you don't have to worry about registering, but it would be really great if you could actually organize a local event. I'll tell you all about that. Then September 1st, we'll be doing a progress report. I will be reaching out to some selected ambassadors. It'd be great to hear from some of you. It would be great if you could volunteer and just tell some of us about what you're planning so far, what your thoughts are about your local event, what you'd like to do, and what help you may need, because I'm here to offer help, and the more we share what we're experiencing, the more help we can give each other. So I think we are remembering here as Island Innovation Ambassadors. So the big day, September 25th to October 1st, that's when we have the Virtual Island Summit, and we'll be holding your local events. You can hold a local event on any of those days linked to the Virtual Island Summit. In October, we'll be about what we've learned. So there's a lot to do at the Virtual Island Summit over the kind of this third quarter of the Island Ambassador Program. And finally, near the end of we're going to be having a session about waste management, which is a huge problem for most of these. And I've actually had a couple of people volunteer already from our ambassador community to present at that session. Now, like I did, I think our very first session, I asked if anyone was interested in talking about their projects. If any of you are interested or dealing with waste management, particularly from an island perspective, you can share best practices. Please just reach out and let me know. You know, it's scheduled for October 25th. So that's in the calendar already, and you'll be receiving your calendar invitation closer to the time, but keep in touch and let me know. And then our last session's coming up November 30th. There's almost 2 weeks that we have COP28 being held in Dubai. We usually have a virtual space at COP28 in Dubai. This year we have an exciting new program, which we're partnering with Open Society Foundation to train and do a mentorship program, a fully funded opportunity for young activists to actually attend COP in Dubai. So there'll be more about that coming up. I'll talk to you more about that. And I think that link was shared in your WhatsApp group already, okay? But I'll be talking more about that. And then reflections on we will be ending the year. The first time ever I'm going to be doing 2023 Island Ambassador Awards. So we'll have a bit of a ceremony at the final session. Okay, so at this point, let me see. I just want to check the chat and see what's happening. People are just saying hi. Okay, great. Someone's sharing an event in the Cook Islands. Please let me know more about that. It'd be great to hear more about that. Carla, thank you for joining from Portugal. Thank you for joining from Madeira. Okay, great. And there are a few people who would like to be added to the WhatsApp group. Just you to, if possible, send me a direct email and I'll try to organize that as much as possible. Okay, so that's the end of the upcoming sessions. So moving along right now, guidelines for the Virtual Island Summit local events. Okay, I would really love to go through these guidelines. A link to this document was provided for you when I sent out the ambassador update yesterday. So this is a document which is just outlining some of the things that you can do, things you can remember to have a local event. As I said, in our ambassador office hours that were held earlier today, I was telling those who attended that one of the good things about having a local event is if you're an NGO or whatever particular issue that you're hoping to focus on, it's a really good idea to have a local event and document it, because it's a way to build a portfolio of the efforts that you're making in your local community. And it's a way to kind of legitimize your presence if you do want to apply for funding of any kind from any of the institutions or organizations out there. So I would really strongly suggest that you consider local event. Okay. All right, so you're automatically registered, as I said. If you don't know by now, you should. The Virtual Island Summit, it's our carbon conference, okay, that we have every year. And you get access to lots of interesting discussions about all 17 of the UN development goals, okay? And we focus a lot on partnerships, and we focus a lot about planning and all the things that I think really make us, I think, kind of unique as an entity. The fact that we collaborate as much as we do, I really love that as ambassadors, we try to share our expertise and our experiences. Okay, so organizing the local hubs, I think it's a way for you to actually begin to craft yourself, see yourself as a leader in your community, but a leader who definitely wants to bring knowledge to your community, highlight solutions, and highlight ways that you can build resilience in your communities, okay? So you'll share information, you'll contribute to making the Virtual Island Summit more accessible. And if you choose to have a kind of a local event where you have, let's say, panel discussion, we had our ambassadors from St. Lucia, and I know some of them are here today, had a fantastic year when they had a great panel discussion about sustainability and tourism. They had a panel discussion. So they engage with people who are in the tourism industry. Okay, so that's one of the great things about the local events. It's a great way to engage. All right, so the practical guide to the local events, as I said, this was disseminated yesterday, update. And so there are certain steps. It's just 4, actually a lot easier than you would think to have a local event. The 4 steps are: you select the theme of your event according to the themes that are presented at the Virtual Island Summit. You decide your event format. You promote your event. That's really important. If it is an event that you're hoping to get stakeholders involved in or have some audience, you can use your social media presence. You can leverage your social media to promote it, and then you document it. Say a little bit about what the event is about. You could talk about if you discussed any solutions. You can get an idea of what your audience thought about the event, and you can actually even create a press release. You can invite members of the press. This is something that was covered or previous session when we had Vincent. He gave the guest talk about communications as a tool for social transformation, how to engage the press and how to engage local stakeholders. So you can always go back and look at that recording to get some more information about that. Okay, so the first things first, the themes for your local events. So these are the main kind of tracks that we have when we have our local events. There's green finance and the economy, oceans and biodiversity, connectivization, food and water security. We also have culture and community, energy and transport, tourism and remote work, the circular economy, policy and governance, and climate action. So that's a broad range of topics, actually. And I'm sure that anything you do can fit into this kind of theme. So that's why it's really important, though, to just think about what topic you want to cover when you're having your local event. What topic do you want discussed? What could be an issue or challenge that your community is facing? And an event like this is a great way to get people thinking about it. You bring people together to collaborate, and it spurs kind of innovative and creative thinking around solving an issue. Okay, so that's the first step. You choose your theme. So the event format, you can decide what your event to be. It can be really simple. We have had events when people get together and they watch one of the panel discussions from the Virtual Island Summit and they talk about it. We actually had a fantastic ambassador from New Zealand a couple of years ago, and she had a group of people at her house, one of the most enlightening sessions, because it really showed us the way that the Virtual Island Summit is connecting with small members of the community, small groups in the community who then go out and spread the word. You can organize a beach cleanup. And I want to say that one of the reasons we really want to highlight the local events is that we believe that whatever the stage of your digital connectivity is, you can have a local event. So it's not something that has to be virtual. It's not something that has to be live streamed. If you have a beach cleanup and you document that, you promote it on social media, you send us the information about it, that counts as a local event. And it's something that I think is one of a great ways to bring communities together and tackle the issue of plastic pollution that is so prevalent in some islands. So, or a community cleanup, for example. If you have the resources, there's some groups who can, they can rent venues, they get sponsorship, and they have panel discussions, I mentioned, or great group of ambassadors from St. Lucia did that last year. And then you have a question and answer session as well. It can be as simple or as complex as you like it to be, but we want you to know that you do not have to be online. This is not something that has to be streamed or anything that has to be done virtually. We really, it does have to be an in-person event. Have to document it as well as possible, okay? Okay, and then promote it, as I mentioned. Let people know the details. You know, it may seem like September is really far away because now we're thinking about this, it's May, it's basically June, but a lot happens over summer. So it's really great. Some people from very early in the year send out a kind of save the date notice to let people know they're going to have a local event. You have an idea of what your event is going to be, the topic and where. Those are the two most important things to let people know. If it is that you're having friends over to watch one of the sessions of the Virtual Island Summit, that's fine too. Okay, but it's really important to think about now. And the more you think about it, the easier it will be when the event actually arrives. Okay, I see also some people sending their LinkedIn information in the chat. That is fantastic. Do connect with each other if you wish. In terms of local group communication, Thalia, just to answer your question, I know that there are some people who have started separate small WhatsApp groups outside of the kind of musician curated WhatsApp group. I think that the group from Trinidad has started it. I know that last year there was quite a large contingent from Jamaica as well. So you can feel free outside of the WhatsApp chat to reach out and connect with people and connect with each other on LinkedIn, okay? So yes, this is a great opportunity to drop your LinkedIn link there in the chat so that if you need, people can connect, okay? That's fantastic. It's good to see the interactions there in the chat. Thanks so much to everyone. Okay, so then documenting it, as I said, take photos, particularly if it's something that is something like a beach cleanup or a community cleanup. You can write a short description saying what the topic was and what happened. What was the name of the beach? I've been to beach cleanups where it's just maybe 3 or 4 of us and we all, but it's amazing the amount of plastic that you can collect or the amount of garbage you can collect on the beach. And we always make sure we do our where we're there, and then we have gloves and we have or bags for trash, and we have the trash there that we've collected or the plastic waste, okay? So please add these photos to social media. We as well like sharing what you have achieved on our social media platform. So that's why we really recommend that you document the event. And in terms of the ambassador update that I shared yesterday, the practical guide for the local events, there's also some information to studies. Actually, the event that happened in St. Lucia is described. There was also an event in St. Helena and another event, I believe, that was in the Netherlands. So those are some case studies that can give you background into exactly what people did and what ambassadors did to kind of make their events happen and make their events interesting. Okay. It says here, how are some ways you can be helpful if you're located in another country? Well, you can be located in that if you share your experiences in the WhatsApp group, in the Slack channel, share what you're doing. If you do have a particular issue that you're dealing with, let's say, for example, if it's to do with waste management, you can write a short blog post. We actually have a challenge, one of our badges, and I'll be looking at the badge, start giving out badges next month. Some of us, we have one of our ambassadors from Curacao. He did a short blog post, so he's definitely going to get a blogger's badge. 2 or 3 paragraphs about what you have done to solve a particular issue in your community and share that. You know, anything sharing best practices is a great way to be helpful and a great way to inspire other people to act. All right, so we are moving on to climate justice. So before we talk about climate justice, I would love to get an idea of what do you think, you know, I always do this. I always ask what do you think I mean by climate justice? And you don't have to Google anything. It doesn't have to be like a kind of an official definition, but it'd really be great to hear from what you consider climate justice to be. And I would love to check the chat for that. So I think somebody's put something in the chat already. Okay, so please, please give me some ideas. Climate justice, anything that comes to mind at all. Because it would be fantastic to see what you all are thinking. Hi, Jillian. Hi, Jillian, back from Florida.
Hi.
Hi. No, I had to say hi.
I know you sound very steamy. It's lovely to hear your voice again.
To hear and to you. Okay, so all right, so climate justice. This is a great definition, Rooney. Thank you. So kind of actually if the climate was, our planet, this sounds weird to say our planet is a person. We're connected to our planet. So protect our planet, give the planet a voice. Planet Earth, you are Mother Earth, you are nature, okay? Communication is very good. You're empowering people, the concept of justice, you're empowering people, you're making things that are wrong and you're communicating. You take a stand or you try to protect your community against wrongs done by climate. Human rights are part of climate rights too. Oh, that's awesome, yes. And legislative protection for natural capital, ensuring representation and inclusion, positive affirmative action, fantastic. Making sure that the principle that the impacts of climate change should be addressed fairly, I love that. Giving future generations a voice, that's really important because one of the most amazing things about climate justice, it's not just for us we're doing this. We're really doing this for future generations who, one of, the saying goes, we have borrowed the earth from. So we want to make sure that we can make sure that they have a voice and they have a planet like we did. And it's good to see, Carla, I think you mentioned that the term has evolved a lot. So there are different aspects of climate justice and the way it affects different groups. So these are fantastic definitions. So I hope at the end, there's no, I don't have an official Q&A session, but it'd be fantastic to hear some of you when I'm going through my presentation, what you have to say and what your thoughts are after the presentation is done. Okay, so climate justice. So it's a term. I checked Yale Climate Connections and I got this definition that speaks to climate justice being, it's a term, but it's also a movement that recognizes the ways that climate change affects different people in, with social backgrounds, economic backgrounds, the effects on public health and other effects on underprivileged populations. So people who are advocating for, people who are fighting for climate justice want to see that these inequities or these things that are not quite as balanced as they should be are addressed or looked at head on. And this is something that I think about. When I think of justice, I think that there has to be accountability. So you have two aspects of justice, right? There's the accountability, those people who are those entities or those countries who are causing the harm, they have to be held accountable. And there has to be redress for those who are experiencing the harm. So the redress means there's a way to make whatever is wrong right again, or steps can be taken to stop it from becoming any worse than it already is. So that's a way I always think about justice, okay? I see some more awesome definitions. Oh, thank you so much, Mark. There's a, from a UNICEF workshop regarding climate justice. That's great. There's a link in the chat. I encourage everyone to check that. And we have to ensure that mechanisms are in place to get those who are harming the environment. I think it would be great to have everyone cooperate as much as possible to come together to see how can we all create a better place and, as I said, address the wrongs that are happening with the climate, okay? So, oh, the next slide, there we go, the slides were being stubborn. So my Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, had mentioned, and this is her presence at COP26 and COP27, really kind of shed light on, I think, climate justice and what climate justice means for a lot of countries. She made a statement, the quote from Mia Mottley, one of the more famous quotes from her as Prime Minister of Barbados, "We are the ones whose blood, sweat, and tears financed the Industrial Revolution. Are we now to face double jeopardy by having to pay the costs as a result of the greenhouse gases from the Industrial Revolution? It's fundamentally unfair." So we're seeing the idea that something is unfair that needs to be made right. And there are many different aspects to what is happening in the global south and other places to do with climate change and the impacts of climate change. You have the existential threat of rising sea levels because of global warming, ocean acidification. So they are territories and islands that are literally sea level is rising. So that could also mean that culture as a way of life will also cease to exist. but you also have issues like with rising sea levels in Barbados. We get our water from freshwater aquifers, from rainwater that is filtered through the coral. Now, when the sea level begins to rise, we get saltwater intrusion into our freshwater supply. And food and water security is always a huge issue for any large ocean state, or what we're facing now. So that's something to bear in mind. So these are the things that climate justice hopes to kind of correct. And okay, so there are 6 pillars of climate justice, or there's 6 aspects of climate. Pretty much a lot of you in the chat already said what some of these are. So the aspects that we're going to be looking at in the presentation, there's social, racial, and environmental justice. That links to climate education and engagement. A really important aspect of climate justice is to have education and engagement. We look at Indigenous climate action and Indigenous knowledge, what is called a just transition. We will also talk about community resilience and adaptation, natural climate solutions. Okay, so those are the 6 things. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second because I've been talking for a while, and I'd like to invite, does anyone have anything they'd like to say, any comments they'd like to make? Please put up your hand. Hear anyone, if it is that you'd like to say anything. You're free to type in the chat as well, as you've been doing, but it would hear if anyone would like anything to, has anything to say. That'd be fantastic as well. Okay. Any thoughts, any comments, anything you'd like to talk about some more? I see people people are very appreciative of the link put in the chat from the UNICEF workshop about climate justice. Thanks so much for sharing that, Mark. We do
Hi, good afternoon. This is Ilib.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for doing a 5 o'clock meeting because I haven't been able to come to any of the morning ones. But I'm glad you're touching on climate justice. Because one of the things I've done in my studies, I've looked at sustainability for reference to climate change for the Caribbean islands.
Yes.
However, when we look at that, the seriousness of climate justice is what we're not really doing right now in terms of the way we do things in the Caribbean. So with governments having to all come together, we need to have serious conversations. We are at that level, at the political levels, but we should also have the awareness developed with the younger people. I say, let us, if we're going to start something, the best place to start is with the youngest generation. So education is where changes occur. So I think things like climate justice should now become a science. A science, because I see things like sustainability, I see things like resilience as sciences, not just things that we just talk about when a hurricane happens or because we're losing our coastal areas and stuff. It has to become something that is taught within schools, whether it's elementary level, high school level, where we develop a serious awareness. Because when you think of the islands, when we lose our land, that's it, for us.
Exactly.
Because we cannot build that back, losing land on an island because of climate change is a very serious conversation when it comes to our blue economy, but also our food supplies, as you talked about, our water supplies in the case of Barbados, St. Martin, and all of these islands that depend on the water, on rainfall water, or even to desalination. So these are things we have to start making people become aware of, especially where our carbon footprint is concerned within the Caribbean islands. I think that's something that we're not taking seriously at all.
Yeah, I love your focus on education, because I see that a lot of people in the chat are agreeing that the idea of climate justice and the idea of climate education as being part of the curriculum, I think will make a huge difference in raising awareness. And that's the beginning, right? That's the beginning of being really aware of the science behind what's happening to the earth. Okay, and that's something that will filter through all generations as soon as we start to raise that awareness. So I'm really glad that you are interested in the topic. I think that in our part of the world, we don't have the same levels of, say, climate litigation that are happening in some other parts of the world. And climate litigation is obviously when citizens sometimes try to hold governments accountable for what's happening in the climate change arena. We don't see that at the same level in the Caribbean, but that it might just be a matter of time before that actually happens.
Yeah, I did a chapter with Harvard University where we looked at the role of higher institutions
Great.
where climate change is concerned. So that is something maybe we could put up and discuss, because it's like 33 pages. And it was quite interesting to pull up that research to see how culture can affect decision making with reference to how well it is going to be received or not.
Exactly. Yeah, very true. And the thing is, when you were talking about we're losing land, we're not just losing land when the sea levels rise. We're losing a way of life. We're losing language, culture. You know, we're losing that intergenerational experience through the stories that are told, because or storytelling, the topics of our storytelling is going to disappear. So I think that's something really important. I see someone has their hand up. I see you're listed as Authentic Caribbean Foundation, but I know who you are.
Sorry, Andrew Sharp. I'm sorry.
Hi,
I didn't get to-
Andrew. I know.
How are you? I'm
How are
glad.
you? Good to hear
I'm
you.
doing good. I'm glad the lady spoke about that. Those discussions are really happening, especially we here as Caribbean American community, and June is National Caribbean American Heritage Month. So there are discussions with the U.S. State Department on the blue economy and climate change that are happening in terms of policies. So we guide the U.S. State Department on policy, U.S. Caribbean policy pertaining to that. And that's something that we'll be discussing in June with our legislative week at this U.S. Congress and the State Department. So I agree
That's
with that lady that was on the call. And yes, I was at that Harvard event. I'm actually based in Massachusetts, so I was at that event. So that's great.
Well, fantastic. You have to keep in touch and tell us more about that. Okay. And I would love to see that chapter that you mentioned, our previous speaker. Please feel free to put the link in the WhatsApp group or message me and send the link. That'd be great. Adrian, I see you have your hand up. Hello from Trinidad. Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Adrian.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yes. Let me go back here. What's going on? All right, lovely. I think, are you all hearing me now?
Yes, we're hearing you and seeing you.
Okay. So I just wanted to also say on that same educational issue that recently, just about 3 months ago, I also participated at another business school, John Ottman in Cincinnati, Ohio, where we did an entire weekend on specifically sustainability. And of course, the whole issue of climate justice is one of the major topics that we covered. We had a group of almost 200 students from around the world attending that particular event. I was one of the speakers at that event, and we found that there's a lot of awareness at the highest levels of the business schools and etc. taking place already. What we've also recognized is that, unfortunately, in many parts of the world, because they're not directly affected, there's no political concern. And while I'm saying that, it's also very much untrue, because most countries, are being affected by it. Even Florida currently is suffering because of simple things like water management, the aquifers that they have within the city of Florida. And I own a home in Florida, and there's craziness taking place, because while they're trying to keep their on-land aquifers, sustainable for water and etc., there's the sea water that's coming in and claiming land. So, we're saying that it's not happening, but it's actually happening. And of course, at the political level, COP27, this is again a major topic headed by our Bajan Prime Minister, who is, I think, is the most outspoken in the region for it. And we have to continue to commend her on all her efforts to really get some accountability more than anything else. You know, I think that we are not. I think we've gone past just basic education, but we've got to start as individuals really stimulating some sort of bigger attention to our countries and even the developed ones there. Just to say, it's not only the Caribbean that should be crying out. The world should be crying out. Jakarta is covered currently. The entire city is being moved because in less than 7 years, it's going to be the existing land situation is going to be totally underwater. I don't know if people are aware how bad it is, but climate change is, and justice for some of these things has got to be, you know, propped up. So anyway, that's my little.
No, great. Thank you for that, Adrian. It's great to hear, you know, your awareness and the fact that, yeah, so there is very much an existential crisis being faced. Existential, we will cease to exist. Life as we know it, culture as we know it will cease to exist because of the climate crisis. And that's something that, that, you know, we really have to raise our awareness about, and as people hold our governments more accountable in various ways. Okay, so that's something that I'm really glad to see the interest that we have here today. That's fantastic. So I'm going to go back to my presentation. I will check back in, of course, so that we can keep talking, but I'll just keep sharing the screen for now. So I'd mentioned the 6 pillars of climate justice that we had. Okay, so moving on to the first one that I'll be discussing, very quick discussion. So all of the 6 pillars are here. You can see them. We mentioned social, racial, and environmental justice, climate education and engagement. And we had some really strong feelings about that particular one coming through in the chat from participants. Thank you for sharing those. Indigenous climate action, the just transition, community resilience and adaptation, and of course, natural climate solutions. So another term for that, it's nature-based solutions that we refer to as well, okay? So as we're looking, so social, racial, and environmental justice, these things have to do with this particular topic, or this aspect of climate justice has to do with the impacts of climate change on low income, of Black and people of color, communities around the world, or in other words, those in the global South, or people or communities who are the least responsible for greenhouse gas emissions and for the rising temperatures and global warming. I know that the Caribbean region, for example, I think we contribute less than a percentage to the global greenhouse gas emissions. We are suffering and bearing a huge burden when it comes to climate change. And this is happening. And, you know, global warming is not just to do with sea level rise. It could be extreme weather events that are also occurring. Droughts and irregular weather patterns are having impacts on crops. So you can see this is impacting food security. It's impacting those people who are least responsible for it. So that's something to bear in mind when it comes to climate justice. And this is not something I'm making up. These are things that are happening all over the world at the moment. So this is something to bear in mind. And this we'll link to that when we talk about education, climate education, okay? So looking at, again, climate education. So it's, what we want to do is make people aware of the science behind climate change, but not just that. The science is extremely important. I think a lot of the reason people aren't as aware of climate change as they should be is they think the climate might, the science might be somehow intimidating. And it really isn't, because we can see it happening around us. You link what's happening, look at science as something real world that you encounter every day. I mean, breathing is literally a science. I mean, it's respiration. Photosynthesis from plants is there, absorbing carbon dioxide and absorbing and giving out oxygen. So these are things that we think about that are happening every day. But the idea that climate change, we can't look at what's happening with climate change in silos. And that's one of the things that I really do enjoy about the topic of climate justice. It makes us see what are the intersections, how are these things connected? Because then when things are connected, if we change and improve one thing, it will often have a corresponding co-benefit in something else. So that's something really important. And climate education, it can be formal or informal, and it should be in all levels, I think, of academia. Now, you know, at tertiary level or at postgraduate level, you can study sustainability, but I think children are some of the most amazing people in the world, full of sense of wonder, full of curiosity. You can use experiential learning to teach children about climate education, and it can be done informally as well. So if there isn't national curricula that are changed, you can create, I know that some schools have climate change clubs or environmental clubs that happen after school or during lunch where kids learn about climate change and children learn about the things they can do. Okay, so climate education and engagement is a really important second pillar. So then we look at Indigenous climate action, and I think the concept of sustainability, we tend to look at it now. There was a report called the Brundtland Commission, which in the 1970s and 1980s kind of brought the idea of sustainability to the forefront of mainly Western minds. But sustainability has been a way of life for many, many Indigenous people all over the world for millennia. So, and that's because there are many Indigenous people who see the connection between us and our ecosystems. We're not separate. So in honoring those ecosystems, we honor ourselves. So our lives are intertwined, okay? So, and who we are very intertwined with our surroundings. And that's actually happens anywhere you are. Anywhere that you form memories, anywhere that you have experiences, there can be a kind of a link to that place. So our need to see how, when we look after that place, we look after who we are. I think we should be aware of that, the validity of that, but also the combination of what are seen as Indigenous knowledge and Western science is really a huge opportunity to find sustainable solutions to climate change and the effects of climate change, okay? So that's the main point with Indigenous climate action. Now, a just transition, that's something that has to do with how are we going to get away, and this has to do with energy and renewable energy. I know in Barbados, the cost of energy is crazy, the cost of non-renewable energy, fossil-based economies. We need to move away from those and have a bit more research and development into renewable energy sources, okay? So this is something that's an important aspect of climate justice, because focusing on renewable energy, it's an entire sector. And as I mentioned, not just technology, but there's an aspect of employment that can come about from focusing on renewable energy and what we call green sectors and sustainable land use. That it actually, again, it's interesting how use of renewable energy in the just transition, it doesn't cost prosperity. On the contrary, renewable energy is, as far from what I've experienced, a lot more economical than that based on fossil fuels. And I think as well, there's a way that there's a sector that can be created. There's jobs and employment that can come from focusing on this. So that's something to bear in mind. And then moving on to the idea of resilience and adaptation. So resilience, we talk about how can we recover? I remember the extreme weather events. I think about the hurricanes that I've experienced recently here. How do we recover from that? But also, and how do we adapt so that we reduce the negative impacts? How do we create literal and figurative infrastructure that takes into account the reality of climate change? And this has to do to an extent with, say, building codes with, I know there's actually one of our ambassadors who is working with hurricane resistant solar panels, for example. This is the kind of thing that we can look at to boost our resilience and our adaptation, okay? So we want to look at economic models that focus on equity. And this is something that's really important with resilience and adaptation. That's absolutely crucial, okay? And then natural solutions or natural climate solutions, or what I refer to as nature-based solutions. So forests and agricultural lands are critical ecosystems for climate action. If we look at regenerative farming, if we look at permaculture, we focus on not just how the land is managed, but who has access to it. So all stakeholders who are involved with nature-based solutions, which tend actually also to be linked with Indigenous knowledge, stand to benefit from climate justice, as do we all, because I like us to focus on the fact that this is something that, you know, we're in this together and we should really think of how we can all benefit, okay? So I would love to hear now, right now, I will pause, I stop sharing, because this is a great time to hear from all of you. I see, Mark, thank you very much from UNESCO saying that you're busy with green schools. That's fantastic. Please share more about that if you can, Mark, in the chat, or you can get in touch with me, more information about green schools. I know that even climate change curricula is actually available. There are lots of various platforms that have free resources with climate change curricula. The tricky thing with that is sometimes to adapt it to a local reality. And this is something that we have to be aware of is important. We can't just take something and kind of copy and paste it into our local reality. We have to make it as relevant as possible. Okay, anyone have anything they'd like to share? I see nobody's unmuted their mics. There's some great connections
Okay.
happening.
I
Hi
just want to share something from what you just said. Interestingly, that you're doing this now, 2021, what you're doing is actually my dissertation. So I was looking at the role of education, innovation, and creativity in in sustainability efforts, but I focused on climate change. I'm glad that you said we shouldn't copy and paste because it's holistic.
Yes.
But so many times what I've seen under the interviews that I did, one of the things that a lot of people were talking about in reference to education was the gap between academia and the local community.
Mhm.
So which was an interesting thing, which took me to another level of research, where they were saying that education is the voice of change. Change is our only inevitable, and education is the voice of reason for change. However, when academia does something, it falls in the lap of our political and governing levels, and it does not really get down to the grassroots of our community. So that is one of the things that, to drive awareness, you have to meet the local people first.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's who's really the majority of our population in whichever society we are. So one of the questions I've been asking is, how do we bridge academia and our local and meet the people at the local level? What are we going to do? Because we do have situations. One of the things that the Caribbean, for example, is not paying attention to a lot, but our food supply and our food resources are becoming depleted because people have left agriculture to do other things. And we depend more on the outside for imports of our food.
Yeah, that's
so
huge.
these are when we talk about these things, these are some of the climate change will also affect these things, because as we talk about the loss of land through disaster, we have to find how are we going to create new forms of agriculture, and what kind of agriculture we are thinking about, and who's going to feed who. So again, we cannot leave out the local community.
I know,
because they're just as vital.
That's a very important point. And your comment that a lot of research happens in silos and a lot of what happens in academic sphere does not reach the community. Actually, in Island Innovation, I'm leading a project called the Academic Council, in which we have representatives from research institutes or universities on a council. We're trying to find ways to publish their research, either in the form of policy briefs that are a bit more palatable and easy to read, that are more illustrated with diagrams, or that we can disseminate on our platform or as far as possible. Because I think that's something, there's so much relevant academic research, but the way it is communicated is often problematic, or it turns a lot of people off because it makes it inaccessible. So we're trying to change that.
And I also added the part where it is a lot individualistic as well. So we have to break up the individualism of our studies. So a lot of people, for example, we go to colleges, we do research, and then what? So we do really good research, we collect good data, and then what happens to it? We get our degrees, and then it stops there. And that's where I think academia has, let me say, shortchanged communities.
Well, that's good to know. That's something that we have to try to make right. And that is something we're working on actually in Island Innovation to change. So Thank you for that point. I do appreciate that point. So the two hands we have up, we have Andrew and then Adrian. So go ahead, Andrew. I see your hand up.
Oh, I thought,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stacy, for the great work. Good evening, everyone. Some of the stuff that we've been doing, working with the schools and the teachers in terms of teacher training, looking at blue economy courses, climate change courses that we can provide support for the teachers training in the region. I just had the opportunity of coming back from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which the Grenadines are so crucial to climate change
Yes, they
so
are.
you heard me, Stacy?
Yes, I'm saying that it is crucial. That's my homeland, St. Vincent of the Grenadines. So anyone,
Yes.
I'm like,
I
yay.
went to Mairo. I was in
Great.
Mairo.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, just and the Tobago's Keys, which is the protected area.
Yep.
So we're looking at supporting.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Andrew. Please, again, I put my
Any other situation. In addition, we adopted some schools where we realized that after school programs needed to be implemented pertaining to these major subjects for the kids. And that's some of the work that we've been doing in the region, right across the region. But I'm excited where it's
Great.
going, where it's taking us in
Great.
terms of supporting the region and adopting some of those schools as per the previous call.
That's
Persons
great.
who was-
Please keep in touch and let me know some more about those activities, Andrew. It'd be great to include that in our ambassador updates. Okay, so Adrian, you have you next, and then Anna after Adrian. Go ahead, Adrian.
Sure, thanks. I'd like to say that the Carbon Institute, Carbon Zero Institute of Trinidad and Tobago just finished a 6 weeks quiz and educational program on climate change. Ran through all the public schools in Trinidad and Tobago, and we also have 100 and almost 125, if I'm not exact, please forgive me, video clips specifically on sustainability for young people, adults, and anyone who would like to access this. As far as job creation is concerned, in my own business, throughout the whole Caribbean and in several parts of the world, we are creating new jobs in sustainability as far as waste energy, as far as agriculture, as far as water production, you know, even home construction. We have a, you know, out of, unfortunately now we're just moving that factory to Belize. We had a completely robotic factory running in Belarus that we had to move out of the war zone recently into Belize, and we're going to be building sustainable homes, and that is also a whole new educational paradigm, because while we're saying it's a robotic factory, there's still need for qualified engineers and all the different people that form that entire process. So, you know, job creation is indeed way beyond what we are seeing. And this is simply because the multiple approach to climate change and to sustainability has to be recognized. We have now specialized lawyers who are dealing with just climate change issues and sustainability. We have specific agriculturalists. I mean, even in my group of companies, we have some agriculturalists that are now being awarded in China and Europe as the #1 people in sustainable agriculture, you know, where we can grow the tomato the size of, you know, a very large baseball, you know, or bigger. And of course, the quality of the plants through, again, very high science. This is no some guys growing stuff in their backyard. So I want to just say there's lots and lots of opportunities coming out of the whole climate justice and also circular economy, blue economy, sustainability that's being recognized in the world. This is not a Caribbean issue. It's a world issue, and it is being addressed in several nations. You would not believe at a conference recently on water with the largest water preservation companies, including one of my own, Semantics out of Sweden, that we have, we've challenged the academic world to really get into the foot of bringing new people to the forefront. Just to give you a one little teaspoon, we've now developed even piping that can resist bacterial infection from water that is treated by specific methods to keep the water coming directly to the consumer from being bacteria contained. Because from the time you store water, you have bacteria. We've eliminated that in Sweden, and now we've gone to the new stage. So employment at every level is available. Yeah. So
it's a way to grow. You're very welcome. Thank you for that, Adrian. Yes, it's a way we can see the economic growth and the boost that can happen through working on this as a sector for technology and for innovative thinking. Anne, I see your hand up as well. And then we have Simone after Anne. Go ahead.
Yes, I cannot say who the lady who really brought up the piece with education, because her window is just saying Zoom user, so I'm not sure who's that. But she started the bit on education, and I think it's very relevant because one of the things that she shared from her studies, but I didn't hear her mention, is just the way systems have worked as we accelerated through time. We have excluded indigenous knowledge and the idea of it. And so we have excluded community. And so what we now have to do is backtrack, reverse, or make a 360 degrees back to nature-based solutions, which falls hard on indigenous knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
The things that my father told me when he shared stories, I wasn't into the environment, this space as I am now, but I am a trained educator, psychologist. So I always tell people, I look at things so differently. I come into the classroom looking at a child's emotions and brains, an adult in the same way. So anything that I want to see to effect change, that's how I see we have to look at it. And a lot of citizens, we cannot ignore this aspect. We are dealing with a population worldwide, especially in the Caribbean, I can speak to, who is disconnected from the environment. So a lot of them have not bought into the whole idea. They still see this as a conspiracy theory with climate change. The thing about the other aspect of it is
The mute.
yeah,
Go
no,
ahead.
I think someone is speaking. Okay, the other aspect is the writing of curriculum. I don't know if understanding the bureaucracy, having been in education for many years, from straight up to tertiary level, from preschool, the bureaucracy is there. It's very challenging in terms of buy-in and the difference between public and private education. But there are schools in preparing for this Climate Action Academy. We did a lot of research, and there are countries that have legislated, New Zealand led out in that, they have legislated that climate justice must be a part of the curriculum. That's where we are. Especially those islands that are being so severely impacted with climate change. And it has to impact policy. We have to stop thinking about the dredging to make canal properties, to put hotels on the shoreline. There's so much. And yesterday, I want to just share the statement because I know you all are familiar with this. There's some scientists in it, but it helped me to reframe some thinking with how we are viewing the world. And this is, I think, the prism we might have to look through when we speak to children, the shifting baseline syndrome. What we see, we believe that's what is. We don't realize that it was better. A lot of the generation don't realize it was better than it is. And so we are accepting this. And I'm going to say something that a lot of people might be offended by, but I know the Bahamas is a very highly touts as a Christian nation. And so a lot of people don't even want to address this in a way to make the change, because we do have a large majority in the Caribbean who says this is a part of the end of the world and leave it to the Lord. That's a reality of what we have to deal with when we are seeking to move towards educating and embracing communities. So it's all of this is in this pot of what exists that we have to work on changing. So just putting it in the curriculum is not the only element that we have to address. There's a lot that we have to look at.
Agree. That's true. And I think, thanks for that comment. I think linked to that, it's not just the curriculum, some very important comments made in the chat made from Sane regarding women in rural areas have a huge amount of knowledge that is intergenerational and is passed down from their mothers to their grandmothers, etc., and down into their daughters. And this is something that needs to be linked with any curricula or linked with any environmental knowledge. It is that Indigenous intergenerational knowledge that's crucial. And I say, Ade, you also mentioned, yes, this happens in rural areas. And this is something that there's a strong oral tradition that tends to be overlooked as a huge, vibrant and relevant source of knowledge. It is not written in books, it is oral. So it depends on us connecting with each other. And that's something that we should really bear in mind. Okay, so I'm going to look to wind up the last few comments. Thanks so much for your comment. And I see Leroy, you have your hand up, and then Adrian after Leroy. Go ahead, Leroy. Good to hear you. Hi. Hello.
Yes, real quick. Yeah, good to see everyone again. Just wanted to just give another shout out that we are holding our annual breadfruit conference. We know that most of the islands use breadfruit as a staple. Our University of Hawaii here, we have a Breadfruit Institute. We're finding great discoveries there with the, with some of the leaves and how valuable that tree is itself. Squalene is one of the great discoveries. Instead of people killing sharks for squalene, you can actually extract that from the plants. Food, of course, is a big food source. So our Pacific Farmers Organization has over 70,000 members, and it's just an organization to help organize farmers to come together to be strength in numbers to try to work on the whole food security issue with that. Ourselves, we bring technology to it where we look at trying to, take all the waste and sanitation that's on islands and stuff and convert that into usable products, which is, fuels, compressed gas, and also most important for the farmers is carbon. We've known that it's been proven and tested that 200 to 300% growth rate in productivity in the farmland when you do that. And then also techniques like, agroforestry and farming, not doing monocropping and that type of stuff there. Just wanted to put that out. Cook Island, August the 21st, that week, we'll be going there. We start moving around instead of just being in Hawaii. We'll be there for a week. We start off on Monday with the Stars of Oceania. So we recognize, similar that we do here in the ambassador program, recognize leaders and stuff throughout Pacific, Caribbean, and also now moving into Africa. And most of our recipients are now ministers. Some are running, like our current Prime Minister of Samoa. She was an awardee back there. So we're kind of putting all this stuff together and looking at holistic solution, which is desalination of water, food security, disaster, just kind of lumping it all together. So not just a conference there. So a lot of activities there. Just wanted to throw that out there. And thanks again.
Thank you so much. I actually found it in the chat. Please feel free to post it again because what you mentioned covers so many intersections again. You mentioned local indigenous medicinal knowledge linked to the flora and fauna and the biodiversity that is often overlooked. We focus on the pharmaceutical industry and not on the natural world and all of the medicine that's in our biodiversity. You mentioned food security. You mentioned that traditional indigenous knowledge about breadfruit and about the recipes that are often passed down. So again, thanks for that, Leroy. I checked further up in the chat, but please feel free to post the link again right now,
Okay.
because yeah, that would be a dream trip for me, actually, to come. I would love that. I would love that. So thanks for that. Thanks for sharing
Thank you.
that. Okay, we'll have the final word to Adrian. Thanks, Adrian, and then we'll wrap up.
Yes, and I just wanted to chime in for Anne there and her discussions on the, you know, indigenous people and also the religious implications of organizations who are not leading in bringing climate change to the forefront, while as a Roman Catholic like myself, who's really been stimulated by our current Pope Francis, who in his second encyclical letter, Legato Si, which is a papal document available in the public domain that speaks entirely about our saving our planet and how God has asked us to save our planet from the very beginning. So the Catholic Church may be not recognized as one of the world leading organizations, Christian organizations that are really doing something and saying something vocally to all its members that we are going in the direction. I'm very proud to say that our Archdiocese of Port of Spain, Trinidad, is probably going to be one of the big leaders in this whole sustainable program and climate justice issues, because the Archdiocese is converting through one of my companies their entire fleet to EV transport. And we are also employing on that same system complete charging systems from solar to power all these vehicles that they're buying. Okay, so that's one little touch on that, and to also accelerate our interests in the world at the CZIT level, where we are been asked by the Jamaican government to come in and do climate change and educational program using our video platforms, and well as running something very similar that's running right now on TV6, which is the sustainability quiz that we had in the entire region. So there's a lot happening in a day-to-day basis from support in this direction. So thanks again, Stacey.
You're welcome, and thanks to everyone for joining us. All of these incredible comments. You have no idea how much it always makes my day. We always go over the time because it's so great to chat with all of you. But it's not just chatting with you, it's afterwards. Please feel free, get in touch with me. My email is within the chat. We can use WhatsApp. You have any more ideas about climate justice, anything, any thoughts, a blog post, anything you'd like to write, any particular quote you'd like to do. I mean, I love to highlight anything you're doing as much as possible. So thanks for all the amazing resources that you shared in the chat. I look forward to hearing more from everybody, and I'll see you at our next session. I'll send out the calendar invitation next week. Thanks so much to everybody. As usual, you have made my day to get to see all of you. So thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Stacey. Awesome.
Bye
Stacey.
bye.
I love hearing you and you say goodbye. So
Have a good day.
have a fantastic day. Bye.
And don't forget to contact me.